Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and Mr. Hannes Solis, thank you for convening this as well as everyone else who is here. First of all, there is no shortage of treaties. I'm going to read a list starting from 1948 with the Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1966, the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, 1981, Declaration of Elimination of All Forms of Intolerance, 2011 Human Rights Council Resolution Combating Intolerance, 2012, there are a plan for action, and so on and so forth. So there's no shortage in the space of conventions and treaties. Unfortunately, when you invite a clergyman onto a panel, an occupational hazard is he will use scripture. And in our Bible, in the Old Testament, we are told that God created us all in His image and His likeness. And that image and that likeness is free. It is thinking. It is reasoning. And with the fall of humankind, another element was introduced, and that is free choice, and even the right to reject God Himself. So whether we accept or reject God, this is not a right given by international treaties. It is a right given by God Himself, enshrined in international law. And so what we need to do is try to have those laws and treaties and agreements become effective and functional. It is one thing for people to sit around the table and draft wonderful declarations. It is another thing for those declarations to become effective and implemented. If we look at most of our countries, if not all of them, they have all signed up to one or more of these treaties and agreements. And yet we see those same countries violating the same agreements in day-to-day life. You may not have institutional persecution, but you will have glass ceilings implemented so that certain religious groups will not be able to have access to everything that others do have. There is a tendency within political power and political influence to either neutralize or weaponize faith and religion and belief. To neutralize it when it's not needed, when it seems to be a hindrance, an obstacle, and then weaponize it, instrumentalize it when it can be used for that party's own political purposes. As people of faith and religion and belief, we need to own our own space. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be very candid and honest, that in many of these settings, we use a certain sense of self-deprecation and self-judgment because it sounds right. In my situation, Coptic Orthodox Church has never been part of the Crusades. We actually suffered under the Crusades. So for me as a Christian to say, yes, we need to look at what's happened under the caliphates, but you know, we have this Christian background. We haven't had it. Other parts of the world have, but we need to take ownership of that. We need to be honest and genuine. The world has too many sound bites. The world has too many political statements. What we need is honest conversation, cooperation, and collaboration. What we're speaking about now is far too great a problem for any nation, political party, religion, advocacy group, or individual to take on their own. It must be a multilateral, collaborative effect that takes place. There is a narrative that religion doesn't matter in the world, that we are post-religious. We know that's not true. We know that 80% of the world's population attributes to itself some kind of religious belief. And with those 80%, religion has a legitimacy, religious leaders have a legitimacy, And the religious presence in the public square has a legitimacy. That's why it needs to be owned, and it needs to be utilized in the right way. We've heard many of our first speakers and their wonderful contributions about the weaponization or the instrumentalization of religion, where it just suits someone's purposes. What is important, and what we've done here, and I see friends from the Baha'i community, the Yazidi community, and others here, where we have stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Just because my church is not persecuted doesn't mean that it shouldn't matter to me. In actual fact, as a Christian, the most un-Christian thing I can do is just advocate for Christians. We're all familiar with Mia Moller, who said at first they came to the trade unionists, and because I was not a trade unionist, I didn't speak. Then they came to the communists, and I wasn't a communist, I didn't speak. Then they came to the Jews, I wasn't a Jew, I didn't speak. And when they had come for me, there was no one to speak for me. We need to find a way in this room to find a way forward. Now, of course, we've all attended many of these meetings. And the last thing we need is another meeting. People have come from far and wide. People have come with conviction. And people have come with a sense of ownership of this. If we do not help government and policymakers, we will not have a chance. My final point is this. There is this expression floating around, if we must speak to government. What does government mean? Is it the FCDO? Is it the Department of Industry and Trade? Is it the intelligence community? Here in the UK, what is it? Because all of these sometimes have conflicting interests. What we need is a unified, cross-departmental approach to what we think is important. Faith and religion are important. We know for a fact that nations where there is religious freedom, there is a thriving in every other aspect of that state. Where there is suppression and persecution, violation, alienation, we see other rights also contravened, and we see some parts of the community, especially women, doubly and triply persecuted because they become minorities within minorities within minorities. And so for that reason, we need not only to speak, but to have them enshrined and to follow through as a consistent and unified and collaborative voice. Thank you.